Welcome to the Off Tackle with John Fina show on the Overreaction Sports Network.
What is going on, everybody? It is time once again for the Sahlen'S Off Tackle with John Fina show. I am not Joe Miller. I am the big O Jerry Ostrowski, and I'm with John tonight. And we've got a lot to talk about. We appreciate you joining us here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, presented by Fanduel. And thanks for everybody that jumped on and had some comments before we even got on the show. I know there's a little bit of a discrepancy this week in time, but thanks to John. He was kind enough to go a half hour later so that I could be a part of this. So, John, thank you very much, sir.
Oh, no, thank you, Jerry. And we like to keep our audience on their toes, right? We can't just deliver the same great content at the same time every week. We just got to have you hanging around. We've got people already in the chat. They've been there for a little while, getting to know each other, putting out their comments, their opinions on everything. But the only opinion that really matters, Jerry, is where do you land on your hot dog routine, baby? Because if you're not landing on Sahlens, I don't know what you're doing. Since 1869, it's a 5-generation family-owned business. Hundreds, if not thousands, of partnered retailers across the country. Heck, you can order it online at Sahlen.com, but check out your local grocery store first. You might find Sahlens in there. All over the Southeast, I know you can find it. Let me tell you something. There's nothing like a Sahlens hot dog. I don't care if you like them barely warmed or you like them charred black. The flavor, the consistency, the quality of the product. If you haven't tried a Sahlen hot dog, are you really Bill's Mafia? And if you claim to be Bill's Mafia, go to Sahlen.com, order some Sahlen today, and you will not regret it. Thank you, Sahlen, for sponsoring the Off Tackle Show with me, John Fina, with guest host Jerry Ostrowski.
Hey, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, the Buffalo Bills need to trim their roster down to 53 men. And one of the things I wanted to get into tonight, obviously the title of the show, we don't want to get into all the 53 and all the moves we think they're going to make. We want to talk about guys on the bubble, guys that could or could not make this roster, guys that have been talked about quite a bit. I'm sure we'll get into some of that tomorrow night when Hard Knocks airs on HBO. But one thing that I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about, John, is obviously big news over the last 24 hours. Jordan Phillips has signed with the Buffalo Bills. Now, at first, it was reported he was going to be signed to the 53-man roster. Actually, he was signed to the active roster, which was the roster of 90 that we have right now, or should I say less than 90 because they did make some cuts. And then he will be released, it's been reported, and then signed back to the practice squad. They did this early signing so that he could come in and start working out and everything, be legal and all that stuff under the NFL terms. Your thoughts on Jordan Phillips coming in on the practice squad? Obviously, lots of chatter at first where we thought that maybe this was a sign of Dwayne Carter possibly moving on or something else as far as an IR move or things. How do you feel about Jordan coming back onto the, at least the practice squad to offer some depth and some flexibility for the Bills at that nose guard position?
Well, I mean, it's good news that he's probably kept up with his storage locker, right? So he's able to empty it out into his apartment. He's good to go. Jordan's the man. Big Phil. Listen, here's where I fall on this, right? You've got Ed Oliver as a 3 technique who's now got some seasoning behind him. But when you start looking at the one technique position, where's the mentor? Where's the guy that's been around? So however this falls at that one technique spot, you got a guy like Jordan Phillips in the locker room on the practice squad, and you cannot deny, Jerry, that part of the reason they're bringing him back is he's got to mentor these guys. He's got to look at film. He's got 2 or 3 guys with very different skill sets, but he's done it all. So he can help them develop. And in addition, obviously, if there's, knock on wood, any kind of catastrophe at the position, you've got a seasoned veteran that can step in, knows the defense, support the defense. So it's a great move, right? I think it's a terrific move. He's a fan favorite, and I think he's going to really help these young guys grow.
I look at it a different way. I look at the fact that they don't feel comfortable with Dwayne Carter getting a ton of nose guard reps. He was drafted by the Bills to be a 3 technique. They moved him to nose this year out of necessity. Hasn't quite clicked for him this preseason. Now, that doesn't mean he can't become a good nose, but right now it's not clicking. I think that this is one of those deals where the Bills have seen enough of Deion Walker, where Walker has some insufficiencies. And when he plays on Sunday Night Football against the Ravens, he's going to understand with Linderbaum and some of these guys he's playing against, a little different than what he's seen. You know, these guys are good up front for Baltimore. He's going to have to play doubles and things like that. But I think they feel comfortable enough with Daquan Jones at starter, Daquan coming in and getting some backup reps, you know, probably 30, no more than 35 plays a game, if that. And then they've got Sanders at a 3 technique. They've got Ed at the 3 technique. And then, of course, the ends are set. I don't know if this means we'll kind of get a read on what they're thinking when we see that inactive list for that first game of the season. Is Dwayne Carter active or is he inactive? Now, if Walker, that back flares up, or Daquan has injury issues like he's had in the past, now they've got that insurance policy on the practice squad to bring in to where you don't have to rely on a guy that's inexperienced at the nose tackle position like Carter is.
Yeah, and Jerry, we're kind of in this strange position where we haven't had that much to talk about on the D-line, right? We got a lot of personalities there, a lot of guys to keep or cut, a lot of shuffling to go on, and a lot of question marks with respect to, are they ready? Can they play?
Right.
It does concern me. You know, Daquan's had some injuries in the past. It's just overall a smart play from, you know, being a mentor, being a stopgap if needed. It's also a signal to perhaps Dwayne Carter, you know, step up. And I said earlier, you know, several weeks ago, I think this was a very, very important camp for Dwayne Carter. You know, I think that they are at the point right now where they'd be willing to cut a guy who was a second-year pick. So it's going to be fascinating what happens tomorrow afternoon. I hate this aspect of it, having been a former player. I'd hate to be in the room. They probably got the freaking board up like they do in the war room with the magnetized name badges, and people are moving things around and screaming at each other. And if you don't think it gets like that in the boardroom, so to speak, you got another thing coming. They get pretty heated about their guys. And especially Jerry, right? If you're keeping one more D lineman, you're subtracting from somewhere else.
Right.
So
I don't think that with this situation and Phillips being on the practice squad, they won't keep one more D lineman. So I think that Dwayne Carter's safe in that aspect. It's just, does he spend the entire season inactive or does he play? Another area where we have some interesting movement that could happen tomorrow. And granted, I said this off air, John, to you. I would not be shocked if the Bills right now or sometime early tomorrow work some sort of trade scenario where maybe they move one of these wide receivers that they have extra and try to get a little bit of help at the DB spot where they can, you know, bring a guy along slowly and have him as a backup, because we have some injuries there. We'll talk about that in a second. But the wide receiver position, obviously, Sanders has done a great job this preseason. He's come on strong. And this is what you want out of a guy that you've kept for 3 years. He's got size. He's got verticality to him. He can get separation. You saw the one-handed catch the other night. His camp has been phenomenal. In my estimation, you might be able to say that he's had the best camp of any player on this roster this preseason. With that being said, the Bills have kept 5 receivers in the past, been pretty dead set on 5. There's a lot of people saying they think they're going to keep 6 because now you've got this situation where if you keep Sanders, who moves on? Is it Elijah Moore? Do you trade
for everybody
Curtis
out there?
Samuel?
For everybody out there, Jerry means Shavers. He says Sanders.
I said Shavers. I meant Shavers.
Yeah, we're good.
Excuse me. CTE. Yep. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Shavers. So you've got Elijah Moore and you got, you've got Curtis Samuel, who could be trade candidates. If they don't trade them, do you keep 6? How do you see this position shaping up? Because keeping 6 at wide receiver is not something historically that Brandon Beane has done.
Yeah, they're in a real pickle, Jerry, because, Curtis Samuel's the one with the cap hit, right? So he's also been injury prone. His availability has been challenged, to say it nicely. So you can't really offload a guy with that contract in a trade unless you're giving up some pretty darn good terms to offload that contract. Correct me when I'm wrong. And then on the opposite side, you say, well, we've developed Shavers. We want to keep him. You can't hide him anymore because you put him out on the field and he's getting reported on and he's doing some pretty magnificent things. So where does that set you? You keep Shavers and Moore, try to offload Samuel. I think what happens, and I don't love it, but given that Keon Coleman has been taking some slot reps, I think this thing fleshes out where Elijah Moore actually does not make the squad. I think you end up with Samuel and Shavers, unless you can figure out a way to offload the Samuel contract. As far as Shavers goes, I just love the big body, right? We haven't had a couple of tall receivers around for quite some time. Now we got Coleman who can go up and get after the ball. I don't think Palmer and Shakir are that guy. So keeping Shavers really adds that, vertical stature to the room. Elijah Moore does not. Curtis Samuel, we don't know what he adds because of challenges of availability. But in the end, I think minus a deal getting done, it's Samuel and Shavers, and Elijah Moore maybe clears waivers and makes it to the practice squad.
The thing about Moore that is a telling tale is the fact that the Bills are his third team in probably 4 years. He has been moved around across the NFL. So there's obviously some fit issues, performance issues, or whatever. You hit the nail on the head when you talk about Shavers, and that is this. This is a guy that all we've done in the offseason is complain about size and the ability to vertically stretch the field at the wide receiver position. I mean, it's become a point of contention where the general manager and a morning talk show host had a pretty interesting discussion about it, right?
Yep, sure did.
And what does Shavers give you? All those things. Plus, he's performing at a high level. So if he's not on this football team, to me, it's an absolute crime. I think you're right, John. I think if somebody moves on, it's probably Elijah Moore. You've got a lot of duplicates at that slot position. Curtis Samuel has a lot of history with Joe Brady and the crew from Carolina. I mean, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot,
and that matters. That matters
big time. There's a trust thing there, as you know, in the NFL. A lot of it is trust. They trust Curtis Samuel when he's healthy. So if I had to look at that spot, I would say yes. It's probably Moore moving on. Maybe goes to the practice squad. But the funny thing is that I'm a big Wilkerson fan.
Yeah.
I mean, what has he done that is warranted not being around? I think he's been tremendous this offseason.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jerry. To just take a quick step back, just to put everything in perspective, right? I know everybody is not healthy all the time, all year, but we looked at last year's offense and we had a fairly consistent group of 4 guys available and then another guy dropping out, the other guy replacing. So we spread the ball around a lot. If we could just keep 4 out of 5 healthy, that's the argument for only keeping 5 in total. With respect to Wilkerson, young kid, right? I don't know that
he did play for the Patriots. He's an NFL vet, but he's not an old vet.
Right. And I don't know that there's a ton of risk in cut re-sign to practice squad with Wilkerson. I think there's far more risk with Shavers. So I think you really have to the goal here is settle on your 5 and then be happy with it and then react with what you have available coming off the wire, right? If nobody picks them up,
right,
then you sign whomever back that you want. Is that Wilkerson or is that Moore?
Because think of it in this aspect as well. If Khalil Shakir has issues coming back from the high ankle sprain, we have not seen or heard from him since the injury in camp, right? And then you got Samuel, who's had some injury issues, although he's been back and he's been practicing. Your next guy that's a slot, like you said earlier, John, is Keon Coleman, who's skill set wise, even though he's not a little dude. You don't have to be small to play slot. He would do well at slot because you've got a natural separation just by how that thing lines up. So with that being said, you then would have to find somebody to be able to run those routes and do the things outside that Coleman does. Shavers fits that bill to me. And so when I look at that room, I like Shakir, Coleman, Palmer, Samuel, Shavers, and then me, I would actually put Christian Wilkerson on the practice squad and not Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's wise. you never know, right? I mean,
Right.
they go to the wire and somebody picks them up, then you're done. I think when you talk about the slot position, we like these guys like Shakir that can operate in very small spaces, right? That can stop on a dime. Think Cole Beasley and some of the things he did at a very small sized player. In the absence of being able to move like that, which has been some of the, well, Keon Coleman doesn't quite have the feet, doesn't quite have the moves. You can add in the intelligence, understanding the technique that the nickel corner is playing on you. Is the inside leverage? Is the outside leverage? Studying film, understanding what he's susceptible to, being able to set up your routes so you don't always have to rely on small space quickness. So if Keon ends up in that role, I think the brains that he brings that people talk about, grasping the offense, just has to go to, even further along where you're understanding the individual battle against the guy that's covering you.
Moving on to another spot that has a lot of question marks to it, and that's obviously our cornerback position. We know that Trey White had the injury, the lower body injury. We don't have any updates on his status, and I think that you're not going to get any updates. You'll probably find out next week as this team gets ready for Baltimore, and when the reporters are on the field, what do they see, Trey White doing? Is he in street clothes? Is he working out? Is he in pads? We'll find out more about that as we get to next week. We might possibly find out a little bit about it tomorrow in case they make some moves because of that injury and so forth. Hairston's a guy that might start the season on IR. We don't know yet, but if he did start the season on IR and you put him down for the first 4 games, then you got some flexibility with keeping guys. Obviously – there's some other guys, and Jordan Hancock we're going to pull out of that group, and we'll talk about him separately. I want to ask you this question. When watching that game the other night in Tampa Bay, John, was it interesting to you that a guy like Dane Jackson and the amount of seasons he has in the NFL, especially in this defense, what did it tell you by him taking that many more reps than Jamarcus Ingram? You know how it is, a lot of times nowadays, it's like if you play a lot in that last preseason game, that means the guys that aren't playing are safe. They're going to be on the regular roster. They're not trying to get them hurt. In the old days, a guy would not play because the franchise didn't want him to get hurt in the preseason game, to where if they're cutting him, they'd have to pay him an injury settlement.
Yeah.
What do you make of that situation, and how do you see that quarterback spot setting up in that, that area of 4 and 5, and how it all goes together with now 2 first team corners, if you call Hairston a first team corner, out with injury?
Yeah, I think you brought up a really great point about not playing a guy because he's going to make the roster, playing a guy, that injury settlement, all the machinations of that. I think this is the one instance where Dane Jackson will be the guy if Hairston and Trey White are not ready. And then obviously you can keep Ingram or Strong or however that folds out. But I think Dane Jackson just has so many more reps on the field than Jamarcus Ingram. And this kind of plays into another group, right? They talk about Ingram being a really great special teams player.
Yes.
But, and this is thirdly conversation or fourthly that we're going to have, Codrington also got quite a bit of reps in the secondary, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you think of his play. So you keep the guy, Dane Jackson, that has more reps, that has more experience in this defense, on the field, in game situations. And you have to let Ingram go, and then you defer to Strong because I think his ceiling is super high. I think that he's looked really good in the limited reps that he's had this preseason, but they're assessing these guys on their ability to absorb knowledge, their ability to grow day by day in the understanding of the game. And if they see that in Strong, that puts Ingram on the outside looking in.
And I look at Dorian Strong as more of a Christian Benford type corner than I would like a Maxwell Hairston corner. A lot of people had him projected as high as 2. Most had him going in the 3rd round. He lasts till number 6. But top end speed, having issues with carrying routes to the top end of the route. He has some of that, but he is a smart player. He's kind of got that zone coverage type ability that Benford had, can play outside, because nowadays corners have to play. They have to tackle. There are no more days of Merton Hanks and Deion Sanders. Okay, you've got to be able to tackle outside the way defenses play. So I think he does fit. So again, and I like your call. I mean, Dane Jackson stays around, Jamarcus goes. I think there's a possibility they both stay. I think Codrington, John, you just have to put him in the punt return slot. I don't even think you add him to the corner. But I wanted to go one step further with that group. You, like me, have kind of got a fondness for Jordan Hancock. I mean, we watched him play. I think he's got a tremendous amount of ability. He's been playing corners, a little bit of nickel corner, a little bit of safety, but they're trying to bring him along slowly. With the shoulder injury that he had in the preseason game, I don't know if, they can release him yet because of the injury. They don't want to release him and give him a settlement. I mean, if they did release him, I'm sure they try to bring him back on the practice squad. Is he a power candidate? And how do you see him fitting in? Because I think he's a guy that, bubble guy, maybe not, but definitely a guy they want at One Bills Drive, and they don't want him going somewhere else.
Yeah, he looked really good this preseason, right? And as you said, I mean, he comes out of a fantastic program, a very aggressive secondary in Columbus, Ohio. And I think he's the kind of guy that you figure out a way to keep around. Now, obviously, there's no secrets in the NFL, right? You can't just hide a guy in a closet somewhere. So if they do have to take into consideration the injury, depending on where that is and in what stage it is, it could almost always be better for him if he is in that kind of injured category, right? Because then you can kind of let the dust settle at the beginning of the season and then slide him back somehow onto the practice squad. I don't know, given that room right now, even though he does have a wide variety of skill set, that we need him straight away. I think he can kind of sit back, figure out a way to keep him by whatever mechanism you can, but keep that kid.
I think your safety room's pretty set with Rapp, Bishop, Lewis, and Hamlin. I don't see that room changing very much. I think they're set, even though Derek Forrest probably had his best performance of the preseason this past week against Tampa Bay. I'm not sure he's done enough to unseat DeMar Hamlin. Obviously, another thing to look at is the Bills did free up some cap space with the James Cook deal, but they still do need to get a little bit more for paying these practice squad guys when they bring them up and things like that. So that could be a possibility. But with a little bit of time left in the show today, and we appreciate everybody over in the comments joining us, cognitive dissonance. That's probably
dissonance. Yeah, sure.
I would only expect that on a John Fina show, that somebody known as cognitive dissonance would be over in the comments. But Aaron Prevost, Bella, as always, Richard Rush, everybody that's joined us, we appreciate you. Thank you. Scott Blakely, thanks for joining us and chiming in the comments. I'd be amiss, though, on the off-tackle show with John Fina if we didn't talk about the offensive line at least a little bit. And there is one thing there that's could possibly be an issue, and that's the fact that Cedric Van Pran-Granger is still on the PUP list. And when you look at that, the Bills have kept 9 offensive linemen in the past. I don't think that's changing. The area that I had for you, John, is that 9th spot. I think we're pretty much set with, obviously Deion, Spencer, McGovern, Edwards, and Osiris Torrance. There's your starting 5.
Yep.
We're set with Alec Anderson. He had the knee surgery. When we were at camp, he was already on the bike without a wrap on it. I think they're just holding him out to let him heal a little bit more. He'll be fine. Tylen Grable, who I think is the heir apparent to one of these open spots inside. When I say that, I mean probably left guard. Although Alec Anderson will battle for that spot as well. Tylen comes in as a swing man with tackle and guard stuff, but he's had the concussion. And then obviously Ryan Vandermark. The 9th spot. Do you use that 9th spot and keep your 7th round draft pick in Chase Lunt, who I think you could probably release and get back on the team? Or do you use that 9th spot on a guy like Mike Edwards? We talked about Feeney a little bit. I think Mike Edwards is a better player than Feeney, especially when they've both played guard and center in the preseason. Do you use that 9th spot as your backup center with a guy like Green until Cedric Van Pran-Granger comes back, and then maybe you can release Green and put him on the practice squad? How do you see that group shaping up in that 8 and 9 area?
Well, the key to what you just mentioned is the center spot, right? So Connor McGovern's your starter. Van Pran-Granger is out, questionable pup. He's not available. Alec Anderson, I think, is probably the preferred backup center, but he's missed so many reps now with the knee. And although he's been training and doing a lot of things that we can't see, game speed, game condition, all of those things come into play. And the knee itself, how well is he healed? So I think the smart play here is Green. Mike Edwards, enormous human being, right? I'm not sure he's the guy. I don't think Freeney's.
Well, you're thinking of not Mike Edwards.
David Edwards.
I messed that up. Yeah. David Edwards is the left guard. Kendrick Green is the guy I'm talking about.
Kendrick Green is probably the solution to this particular problem, right? So I think you have to keep Green just because you're unsure about Alec Anderson. Now, if Alec Anderson can come back in time, you keep Alec Anderson as the backup tackle, and then a lot of you will say, well, we lose him then in the heavy package. But I don't think you do, because while you might trade a different body size, you gain a little bit more ability in Jackson Hawes should he become on the active roster. So there's so many things moving around here, but I think you have to keep Green until you know Alec Anderson can be in that backup center spot. Vandermark is a lock. He's the only backup tackle on the roster with true reps, right? So Vandermark's not going anywhere. Alec Anderson can play all five. We just don't know if he can play. Tylen Grable is questionable because of, obviously, the concussive event. So to me, Vandermark, Anderson, Green are lock, right? So it's either Grable or Lunt, and I agree with you. Lunt would go cut, sign back to the practice squad. I don't think he's quite there yet. He showed some really interesting things for a young guy in the games, and he got significant reps, but he's not ready at this point. He's a development guy.
I'm going to say this. I think that while we will still see some of Alec Anderson, possibly, word on the street is that Aaron Cromer has already said just through camp that Jackson Hawes is the best blocking tight end he's ever seen. If you watch the All-22, I've watched a bunch of it. If you just get some time, just go watch the offensive snaps and watch the running plays. Jackson Hawes is an absolute hammer. I mean, he blocks his rear end off. So like you just said, John, I think with him and the ability, I mean, you saw him catch that out pass the other day that they run to Kincaid all the time. He stuck his foot in the ground, made the guy miss, and got him an extra, 7-8 yards. If you can do that, all power to it. I mean, for all intents and purposes. So I think you'll still see some Alec Anderson. They like that set. Why not have Alec Anderson and Jackson Hawes and collapse the whole damn thing to the sideline, which I'm a fan of quite a bit. You go ahead and get in that jumbo package, and you put Alec Anderson at the end of the line of scrimmage as your tight end, and then you have Jackson Hawes just off his hip as a wing, and just say, okay, boys,
let's
go.
We're
gonna run right here. This is where we're going, and if you want to send everybody over, that's fine.
Sure.
You're not going to be able to stop this.
That's right. And when you load up over there, we're just going to boot out the other side. I'll tell you, Hawes is to the offense what Hoyt is to the defense.
Yes.
Just a dog. And people in the audience right now listening to this, it is a mental and emotional state for a tight end to become a blocker the way some of these guys do in the league, like George Kittle, like we see Hawes from college and capable of and doing in the NFL. There are some guys who just aren't built for it, or they're built for it, but mentally and emotionally, just to understand the philosophy of the run, the angles, how to turn up, where to get your eyes on a guy to get the proper leverage on, on a power or on a counter. These are special guys. And if Alec has to move in at center, you still have your heavy package, finger quotes, with a guy like Hawes who can block almost like a tackle.
Well, think about it, John. The game's evolved to where all the guys that were playing tight end when we played, they're all right and left tackles now, right? And then you got Kincaid and all these cats running around, running routes. You get a guy like Jackson Hawes, it's almost like damn Christmas, man. It's like getting that gift that you always wanted, but you're like, there ain't no way I'm getting this for Christmas. And all of a sudden it's sitting there, and obviously the most famous is the Red Ryder BB gun sitting behind the desk over in the corner. But yeah, I mean, Jackson Halls, I think this might sound crazy, man. And if it sounds crazy, I'm sorry. He's been my favorite draft pick of this draft class. He might be the best damn draft pick of the entire draft class this year. And if not the best, damn sure for the most value of where they got him.
Well, he certainly will perform a role where he won't pop out all the time and you say, thank God we drafted that guy. It's not going to be a sack. It's not going to be a splash play. It's going to be it's going to be a cog in the wheel that makes the play go for 7 yards instead of 4 or 12 yards instead of 6, right? So he'll be in that sort of unheralded role that people don't really understand unless they break down film. And like Jerry said, break down some film, watch a guy like that. How about this, Jerry? You get 3 tight ends on the field and Reggie Gilliam, and you line up in heavy right? And you put Keon Coleman on the backside or Shakir. You roll out that way and you sneak somebody out on a skinny post, fake and run, a la Indianapolis when Peyton Manning was there. Everybody's stepping up on the running back. Remind me his name.
Cook.
Out of Florida. Anyway, you get the point.
Cook?
No, I'm talking about the running back that played at Indy with Peyton Manning.
Oh,
somebody. Edgerrin James. Yes. So you threatened to hand the ball off in an overloaded alignment to a guy like James Cook or Edgerrin James quality runner with Reggie Gilliam over there. Tell me that defense isn't going to step up. And then you got a man-to-man backside skinny post. That would be some fun offense to watch.
Well,
people would be pulling their hair out. They'd be like, what are all those guys doing on one side of the ball?
When I coached high school, we would run specific overload sets like that on short yardage. So in my world, we would take Osiris Torrance and put him at left guard, next to Dion, next to Alec Anderson, next to Jackson Hawes, and then put Reggie in the backfield and
offset to that side.
And we would call it 46 or 47 lead, which is everybody blocks inside and the fullback finds the dude that's not blocked and knocks him out. So
that's right.
We got a lot of possibilities.
We did the same thing in high school. Sometimes people just don't identify the change quickly enough. You need one play to break it, and then you line up again, and then they want to stop that run, and then you sneak a little pass play in after it. Listen to us, offensive coordinator wannabes.
Joe Brady, we'll send you our number. We'll get up on the grease board. John, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
First thought is Joe Brady already has our phone numbers in the waste bin. Secondly, summer's still with us. Get out there and get your Sahlens. Load that dog up with Weber's mustard. Don't let it go yet, everybody. Get your Sahlens on the grill. Jerry, thanks for jumping in. I always have a good time talking to you, man. I mean, this spirals out of control a little bit. We hope we've confused you all. You have no idea where the Bills are going to be tomorrow at 4 p.m. East. I don't either, but it's an exciting year to follow and understand the philosophy of where they're going.
I started doing 2 hours of local radio here in Tulsa, sports radio every day, and my first hour we do nothing but it's called Football Daily. We do nothing but NFL football for an hour, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about a bunch of trades, a bunch of releases, and all that kind of stuff. Like John said, obviously 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And here's the other thing, folks. Tomorrow at 4:10, don't go buy a jersey. Give it till the end of the week. Because just because they're on the team at 4:01 on Tuesday does not mean that they're going to be on the team at 4:01 on Wednesday. Just let it have a few days to sell.
And a better cautionary tale to all of you who own jerseys is at 4:10. Don't get so angry with Brandon Beane that you go out and burn all your jerseys in the yard.
Yeah, it reminds me of a good story about the time my oldest boy wanted to burn his Kevin Durant's because he left Oklahoma City and went to Golden State, and I about beat him in front of the neighbors in the driveway because I'm like, you know how much them damn shoes cost, boy? You better put them on and wear them with pride because you ain't burning nothing. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's
this has been
awesome.
the Off Tackle with John Fina show, brought to you by Sahlens, and we appreciate you in the comments. Thanks for watching, tuning in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, tell your friends, and remember, if you don't catch us on YouTube, we're on all major podcasting platforms. You can listen to us there. So we'll have On the Beat tomorrow night. I'll be on Wednesday night. And then we've got the I don't know if the walkthrough is this week or not, considering we don't have a game. Might be,
That's
might
right.
not. I'm sure we'll have a Sunday show, and then we'll get back into game week productions. So as always, folks, we appreciate you. John?
Jerry, go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.